For thousands of years, the stars whispered secrets across the galaxy, some full of hope, others filled with silence. But on a quiet night aboard the human exploration ship Soul Runner, Commander Elias Monroe picked up something different. A voice, soft, pleading, and not human. "Please, come aboard. I need help. I don't want to be alone." The message repeated again and again. It wasn't just a distress signal. It felt like someone was truly reaching out with fear, with hope, and with something else Elias couldn't explain. He stared at the monitor, unable to look away. The voice belonged to a girl. Alien, yes. She spoke in clear, simple Earth English, and there was something raw in her tone. Something real. The crew gathered around. They were tired, deep in unknown space, far beyond mapped regions. Most thought it was a trap or a glitch. Others wanted to ignore it, but Elias couldn't. She's out there, and she sounds alone. Crew hesitated, but Elias made his choice. Set a course. "We're going to find her." It took 4 days of travel. Coordinates led them to a small, elegant silver vessel, drifting silently in the orbit of a cold, blue gas giant. There were no signs of weapons or power, just a dim glow coming from within. Elias prepared to board, bringing only a basic translator, a pressure suit, and a heart full of questions. As the airlock opened, he stepped into a quiet, softly lit hallway. The lights flickered gently, almost like a heartbeat. Then came the voice again, clearer this time. "Closer you came." Elias turned, and there she was. She wasn't human. Her skin shimmered like silver in starlight. Her eyes were large, violet, and full of emotion. It's not fear, not danger, just relief. She looked young, maybe the same age as a human in her 20s. Her hair floating slightly in the ship's artificial gravity looked like soft strands of glowing mist. "I didn't know if anyone would hear me," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been alone for so long." Elias removed his helmet slowly. "My name is Elias Monroe. I heard your signal. I'm Alari," she replied softly. "Last of my kind." His heart tightened. She told him her story in pieces between deep breaths and tired eyes. Her people had been explorers too, long before humans took to the stars. But something happened. Terrible collapse. A wave of silence. Her ship had been stranded for years, maybe decades. She had waited, sent out a message every day, hoping someone, anyone, would hear. And now someone had. Elias looked at her and didn't see just an alien girl. He saw someone brave, someone who had kept hope alive when most would have given up. "I'm not leaving you here," he said gently. Alari blinked. Her eyes shimmered. "You mean I can come with you? You don't have to ask. We're human. We don't leave people behind." For the first time, she smiled. And in that moment, Elias understood something deeper. This wasn't just about rescue. This was about connection. It's about two worlds meeting not with fear, but with kindness. As they walked back toward the ship, side by side, Ilari looked at the stars. "They're not so quiet anymore," she whispered. The airlock closed behind them with a soft hiss. For a few seconds, everything was quiet. Laurie stood at the entrance of the Soul Runner, her eyes wide, her breath shallow. It was her first step onto a human ship, and it felt like stepping into a dream she never thought would come true. Elias watched her carefully. He had seen many species during his missions, but none had ever made him feel so protective so quickly. Ilari looked strong in her own way, but her loneliness still echoed in her voice and movements. "Don't worry," he said softly. "You're safe here." Ilari nodded. "It feels strange. So many voices, so much life." The hallway buzzed with quiet footsteps and murmured curiosity. The human crew peeked from corners, trying not to stare. They had been expecting something dangerous or robotic. Instead, they saw a graceful, soft-spoken girl with glowing hair and eyes full of wonder. Dr. Lena Hart, the ship's science officer, approached with a kind smile. "Hello, Ilari. I'm Lena. You must be tired." Laurie looked at her with gentle surprise. "You're not afraid of me?" "Afraid?" Lena chuckled. "You're the most peaceful thing we've seen in weeks." Ilari gave a small smile. Then I am glad. They led her to the med bay to check her health, while Lena scanned her, answering each question carefully. Her body was similar to a human's, but lighter, more efficient. Her people had once lived in harmony with space, growing with it, learning from it. But now, she was the only one left. When the exam was done, Elias showed her to a small guest room near his quarters. It was simple, just a bed, a table, and a soft light, but to Ilari it felt like a palace. I haven't seen real light in years, she whispered, brushing her fingers against the lamp's glow. Everything on my ship is faded, old, forgotten. Elias leaned against the doorway. You don't have to be alone anymore. She turned to him, her violet eyes shining with something more than gratitude. Why did you come for me? Others ignored my signal, you didn't. Elias paused for a moment before answering. Because I heard more than just a call for help. I heard a heart that hadn't given up. Ilari looked down, quiet, her fingers resting gently over her chest. I was afraid that if I stopped calling, I would disappear forever. Like I had never existed. Elias stepped closer. But now someone knows you're real. We'll make sure the galaxy never forgets. The ship continued its journey, but everything felt different now. Ilari joined the crew for meals, though she didn't eat much. She listened more than she spoke, learning their names, their stories. She moved with grace, her presence calming. Like soft music in the background of their busy routines, some crew members were still unsure how to act around her. But over time, they started to smile when she walked by. They shared books, music, little things to help her feel at home. And slowly, she began to laugh, a sound that surprised even her. One evening, Elias found her on the observation deck, watching the stars again. They look different now, she said. How so? He asked. They don't feel cold anymore. He stood beside her, watching the light dance across her silver skin. You gave me something I thought I had lost, she continued. Not just safety, but a place. A reason to keep going, Elias smiled. That's what we humans do. Find family even in the stars. For the first time in years, Ilari didn't feel like a lost message floating in space. She felt seen, heard, connected, and for the Soul Runner crew, she wasn't just an alien visitor anymore. She was one of them. Ilari sat by the window, her hands resting quietly on her lap, her eyes focused on the stars passing by. The Soul Runner was moving through a calm region of space now, with no urgent missions or dangers. For the crew, it was a time of rest. For Ilari, it was a time of healing. She had not spoken much about her past since arriving. But now, as she spent more time among the humans, memories returned. Some were warm, like soft lights from long ago. Others were cold and painful, like the endless silence that followed the loss of her people. One morning, Elias found her sitting in the quiet library room. She was holding an old Earth book, one with faded pages and a hand-drawn cover. You like reading? Elias asked, stepping inside. Ilari looked up, her eyes soft. I don't know all the words yet, but the pictures, they feel alive. Leah smiled and sat across from her. That book was one of my mother's favorites. It's about a girl who gets lost, but finds her way by following kindness. Ilari touched the cover gently. A kindness is a light. I had forgotten what it looked like, till I met you. Those words touched Elias deeply. He didn't say anything at first. Instead, he watched her, seeing the quiet strength behind her fragile smile. Would you like to see more of Earth's stories? He finally asked. She nodded. Yes, I want to understand your world. Day by day, she learned more. The crew taught her Earth music, art, and even small things like jokes and card games. She listened carefully, always eager, always curious. Her laugh became more frequent, soft and musical like wind chimes in the breeze. But sometimes, when she was alone, sadness still returned. Late one evening, Ilari stood on the deck where her pod had been stored, the only piece of her ship left intact. She ran her fingers along its cold surface, remembering the years she spent in that silence. Waiting and hoping, Elias came up behind her. "You miss them," he said quietly. "I do," she replied. "Every night I see their faces in my dreams. My mother, my brother, my friends. We were scientists, explorers. We believed the stars were our future, but the silence. It took everything." Elias nodded slowly. "You've been through more than anyone should. But you're still standing, still smiling. Only because you heard me," she whispered. "I was a voice lost in the dark. You gave me light." Elias stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Part of our story. You're not alone anymore." Her eyes shimmered again, this time not with sorrow, with something brighter. Hope. The next day Ilari asked to help the engineering team. She wanted to learn how the ship worked. The crew welcomed her gladly. She picked up the basics. Quickly, her hands delicate but precise. The humans were amazed at how fast she adapted. She didn't just want to survive anymore. She wanted to grow. She even asked to record a new message, one to be shared across the galaxy. "My name is Ilari," she said softly into the ship's comm system. "I was lost, but now I am found. If anyone hears this, know that hope is real. Humans heard me when no one else did, and they didn't just rescue me. They gave me a family." The message was sent out in all directions, across deep space. Back in the observation room, Ilari sat beside Elias once more. She leaned her head lightly on his shoulder, her eyes full of peace. For the first time, she said, "The stars feel like home." And Elias knew then this journey was no longer just about space. It was about hearts, healing, and the beauty of choosing kindness. The days passed gently aboard the Soul Runner, and Ilari's presence became a quiet light in the heart of the ship. The crew no longer saw her as a stranger from the stars. She was one of them now, gentle, curious, always willing to help. But while her smile had returned, Elias noticed something in her eyes. A question, a quiet wonder she never asked aloud. One afternoon, while checking the ship's systems, Elias stood next to Elias near the central control deck. They had been working, in silence, side by side, until Ilari finally turned to him. "Elias," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" "Personal?" He looked up, of course. She hesitated, her fingers brushing over the console. "What does love feel like? For humans?" The question caught him by surprise. He didn't speak for a moment. "It's hard to explain," he said finally. "It's not just one feeling. It's comfort, safety, wishing someone well, even if you don't say it out loud, wanting to protect them without needing anything in return." Ilari listened carefully. "My world, love was soft. We didn't speak of it with words. We shared it through light, through our presence, but I've forgotten what that light feels like." Elias looked into her eyes, eyes that had held sorrow, hope. Wow. And now, something quietly blooming. "You haven't forgotten," he said gently. "You carried that light all these years. You shared it with us." That evening, Ilari stood in front of the mirror in her quarters. She touched her face, studied her reflection. Her skin still shimmered, her hair still floated like mist. But something was different. She looked more alive now. Not just breathing, living. She picked up a small human pendant the crew had given her. It was a simple thing, a charm shaped like a star. She wore it close to her heart. The next morning, she joined Lena and the rest of the science team. In the lab, they were mapping nearby solar systems. Ilari leaned over the screens, fascinated by the planets, the rings of color, the dancing comets. "I want to help," she said. "I want to do more than remember my people. I want to create something new." Lena smiled. "Then we'll teach you everything." As the crew worked, Ilari showed a natural talent for design and energy control. Her mind was sharp, full of gentle logic and thoughtful questions. Soon, she wasn't just learning, she was offering ideas that surprised even the most experienced engineers. Meanwhile, Elias found himself watching her more often. Not because she was different, but because she was becoming someone he admired deeply. Her courage, her grace, her quiet strength, it moved him. One night, Alari invited him to the observation deck. The stars outside shimmered brighter than usual. "I've been learning your language," she said, "but I also want you to learn mine." Elias looked at her with interest. "How do I do that?" She reached out, slowly, and placed her fingers lightly over his heart. Then she rested her own hand over her chest. "This is how we speak," she whispered. "When words are not enough," Elias understood. Not with logic, but with feeling. He placed his hand gently over hers. For a moment, neither of them spoke. There was only the hum of the ship, the quiet glow of stars, and the shared stillness between two souls from different worlds. Ilari smiled, and in her eyes Elias saw something he didn't need to define. It was love, not the kind spoken loudly, but the kind that grows silently, like light reaching through the darkness. And in that moment, the distance between human and alien faded. What remained was simple: two hearts learning to beat in the same rhythm. Ilari woke up early that morning. The ship was quiet, floating through peaceful space. She stood by the small window in her room, looking out at the stars. They no longer felt cold and silent. Now they felt alive, warm, like a sky full of promises. She touched the pendant hanging near her heart, the tiny star given by the crew. It was small, but it reminded her every day that she was not alone. Someone had heard her when she cried out in the dark. The door chimed softly, and Elias stepped. "You're up early," he said with a smile. Ilari turned and nodded. "I couldn't sleep. The stars kept calling me." Elias walked over and stood beside her. They both looked out the window. A new planet was slowly coming into view, covered in clouds with long, soft rings around it. It looked like a painting from a dream. "We're making a short stop there," he said. "A supply scan might take a few hours. Can I come with you?" she asked. He smiled again. "I was hoping you'd ask." They landed on the planet's surface with a small team. The air was thin but breathable. The ground sparkled faintly. Underfoot, and the sky above shifted with soft green clouds. Ilari knelt down and touched the soil. "This feels familiar, not from my home, but from my dreams." Elias watched her closely. "Maybe your dreams were waiting for this." As the crew scanned for minerals and energy readings, Ilaria walked slowly through the field. She saw small flowers glowing faintly, creatures in the distance, gentle and slow. Everything here was quiet but not empty. It was peaceful. She picked a tiny flower and held it carefully in her hand. "I want to plant something," she said suddenly. Elias looked at her. "Here, no, on your ship, on the Soul Runner," she explained. "I want to grow something, so when others like me come aboard in the future, they'll know they're not alone." Elias's heart softened. "We'll make a place for it." "In the greenhouse?" They returned to the ship, and with Lena's help, Ilari planted the small flower in the greenhouse. It sat gently in a clear pot near the window, soaking in the artificial sunlight. Days passed, and the crew watched as it slowly began to bloom, not with earth colors, but with soft violet and silver like Ilari's eyes. The flower became a symbol, a reminder of hope, of a voice in the dark that was finally heard. One evening, as the stars passed quietly outside, Ilari sat next to Elias again in the observation room. "I was thinking," she said softly, "about what you told me about love." Elias looked at her. "Yes, I think I feel it now, not just for you, for your people, your world, your hearts." She paused and looked down, her fingers playing with the edge of her sleeve. "You gave me more than safety, gave me meaning." Elias took her hand gently in his. "And you gave us something just as big. You reminded us why we explore, not for power, not for glory, but for connection." Ilari smiled, and for the first time, there were no tears in her eyes, only light. "I want to stay," she whispered, "not as a guest, but as part of the crew." Elias squeezed her hand. Then, "Welcome aboard, officially." She leaned her head gently against his shoulder. No more silence, no more waiting. She had found her place, not just on a ship, but in the hearts of those who once were strangers. The stars continued their slow dance across the black sky, and in the middle of it all, human and an alien sat. Side by side, their hearts beating with the same quiet rhythm. Ilari stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the new uniform she had been given. It was a soft, gray suit with a small badge on her chest, the symbol of the Soul Runner. For the first time in her life, she was not just a traveler, not just a survivor. She was a crew member. Her reflection looked different now. Her eyes were still violet. Her skin still shimmered like moonlight, but something inside had changed. She looked stronger, brighter, as if hope had taken root and bloomed inside her. There was a gentle knock on her door. Elias stepped in with a warm smile. "You look ready," he said. Ilari nodded slowly. "It feels like a dream." "Not," he said. "This is your home now." The entire crew had gathered in the main hall to welcome her officially. Captain Ruiz, a kind and calm woman, stood at the center. "We don't take this lightly," the captain said. "When someone joins our crew, they become part of our family." She turned to Ilari and extended her hand. "And today, we welcome you, not as a guest, not as a visitor, but as one of us." Ilari placed her hand in the captain's, her voice soft but steady. "Thank you. I will honor this place with all that I am." The crew clapped. Some smiled. A few had tears in their eyes. Even those who had once been unsure of her now looked at her with respect, even affection. Ilari felt her chest tighten, not with fear, but with something warmer. This was what she had longed for: a place, a purpose. Later, as the celebration ended, Elias found her on the upper deck. She stood near the large viewing window, looking out at the stars again. "I used to watch them alone," she said. "Now, when I look at them, I feel connected." Elias stepped beside her. "That's what belonging feels like. It's not about where you come from. It's about who stands beside you now." She looked at him, her voice softer than ever. "And you've always stood beside me." He smiled, but said nothing. The ship continued its journey. Ilari worked with the science team, shared meals with the crew, and even taught them small things from her world: songs made of light, calming breath patterns, and silent ways of expressing care. The crew loved her gentle wisdom and her quiet presence. She never tried to be loud. She never demanded attention. But people noticed her, the way flowers turned towards sunlight without needing to be told. One evening, the ship received a signal, a faint one, coming from deep space. It was weak, but not broken. Elias and Ilari listened carefully. "It's not a distress call," he said. "It's a request for help, lost travelers. Just like you once were." Ilari leaned closer. The voice on the message trembled with fear and sadness. She looked at Elias. "We have to answer." He nodded. "We will." As the crew changed course to follow the signal, Ilari sat quietly in the observation deck, holding the pendant at her heart. She remembered the day she sent her own message, the day no one answered except one human ship now. She had the chance to do the same for someone else. That night, Elias joined her again. He said, "You're not just part of the crew, you're part of its heart." Ilari turned to him, her eyes full of light. "And you're the one who helped me find mine." They sat together, shoulder to shoulder, two souls from distant worlds, brought together not by war, not by fear, but by a simple call for help, and the kindness that answered. The Soul Runner raced toward the faint distress signal. The crew moved with purpose. Ilari stood on the bridge, her hand on the console. She felt a familiar tug at her heart. This was her chance to repay the kindness she had received. When the ship arrived, they found a small vessel drifting near a ring of ice. It was dark and silent, like a shell without its creature inside. The airlock opened slowly. Leah Solari and two other crew members stepped onto the alien deck. The corridors glowed faintly in blue light. Ilari led the way, her eyes scanning. Every corner, she heard quiet sounds, soft breathing and hushed cries. She stopped outside a door and put her hand on the panel. It slid open. Inside, a family of 3 creatures lay on the floor, weak and frightened. Their skin was pale green, their eyes closed. Ilari knelt beside them. She placed a gentle hand on the eldest. "You are safe now," she whispered. Eyelids fluttered open. It looked at Alari with wide, curious eyes. Alari offered a small smile. Elias entered with supplies. He handed water and food to Alari, who fed each creature carefully. Their bodies trembled as they drank. Ilari spoke softly, her voice calm and warm. The family relaxed, leaning against her gentle touch. Back on the Soul Runner, they transferred the rescued family to the medbay. Dr. Lena Hart worked quickly too. Stabilize them. Laurie stayed close, holding the eldest's hand. She told small stories, tales of light, of star gardens, of ships filled with friends. The family listened, their breathing steadying. As the creatures woke, they saw the flower Ilari had planted. Its violet petals glowed softly under the greenhouse light. The youngest of the rescued smiled when it blinked open. Ilari smiled back. It was a simple gift, but it meant everything. Captain Ruiz addressed the crew later that evening. Today we answered a call for help. We carried hope across the stars. She paused, looking at Ilari. We could not have done it without her. Ilari felt warmth flood her chest. She looked around at human faces. They were her family now. She saw pride in their eyes. She had become more than a lone signal in space. She was a bearer of hope. Later, Ilari and Elias stood together on the observation deck. The rescued family slept peacefully below. The stars outside shone like diamonds on black velvet. Ilari pointed to a distant cluster. "One day, I want to return here," she said softly. "I want to help others in trouble." Elias took her hand gently. "With you, we can bring hope to every corner of the galaxy." He looked into her. Violet eyes. "Your heart leads us." Ilari leaned her head on his shoulder. She felt a new strength growing inside her. She remembered the loneliness that had haunted her for years. Now, loneliness felt impossible. She had friends. Purpose. She had love. As the Soul Runner set a new course, Ilari activated the ship's broadcast. Her clear voice filled the channels of every passing ship. "My name is Ilari. I was lost in silence. But now I am found. If you hear this, know that you are never alone. Help will come." Her message echoed through space, carried on waves of hope. Elias watched her, his heart full. The galaxy was vast and dark, but together they would light its corners. Ilari smiled, her eyes reflecting the stars. In that moment, two worlds stood. As one, a stranger had become a hero. Call for help had become a promise of belonging. And in the silent depths of space, a new dawn of hope was born. Ask ChatGPT.